You are listening to an extended audio preview of the Chaos Magician's Grimoire, written by Adam Lusum and published by LLH Media. The complete book is available from LLH Media and selected online retailers. Chapter 1: Introduction to Chaos Magick. The world is full of mysteries, and throughout history, humanity has tried to unravel them, seeking answers in science, religion, philosophy, and the occult. Among the many traditions that have emerged from this quest, Chaos Magick stands as one of the most provocative and misunderstood. It is a path that defies dogma, eschews rigid systems, and encourages the practitioner to become the architect of their own reality. Chaos Magick is not just a collection of rituals or spells. It is a living philosophy, a toolkit for self-transformation, and a radical approach to the magical arts. To understand Chaos Magick, one must first let go of preconceived notions about what magic is supposed to be. In many occult systems, tradition is paramount. There are prescribed rituals, sacred texts, and established hierarchies. Chaos Magick, by contrast, is iconoclastic. It borrows freely from other traditions, reinterprets symbols, and invites experimentation. Its central tenet is that belief itself is a tool, perhaps the most powerful tool a magician possesses. Rather than treating beliefs as immutable truths, chaos magicians treat them as lenses through which reality can be shaped. The origins of Chaos Magick trace back to the late 20th century, a time of cultural upheaval and intellectual ferment. The seeds of Chaos Magick were sown in the 1970s and 1980s in the United Kingdom, amid a resurgence of interest in occultism and esotericism. The key figures in the genesis of Chaos Magick were Peter J. Carroll and Ray Sherwin. Disillusioned with the dogmatism and ossification they saw in traditional magical orders, Carroll and Sherwin sought to create a new approach, one that emphasized results over tradition, flexibility over orthodoxy. Carroll's foundational works, most notably Liber Null and Psychonaut, laid out the basic principles of Chaos Magick. These texts were not manifestos, but practical guides, encouraging readers to experiment, question, and adapt. Rather than presenting a closed system, Carroll offered a set of tools and concepts that could be customized to suit the needs and inclinations of the individual practitioner. Ray Sherwin, with his book The Book of Results, further articulated the idea that belief could be manipulated to produce magical effects. Together, Carroll and Sherwin catalyzed a movement, one that would soon draw in a diverse array of thinkers, artists, and magicians. The term chaos in Chaos Magick is often misunderstood. It does not merely refer to disorder or randomness. It is inspired by the primordial chaos described in ancient mythologies, a fertile void from which all things emerge. In this context, chaos represents potentiality, the unformed source of creation. Chaos magicians see themselves as navigators of this primordial sea, shaping reality through the focused application of will and belief. At the heart of Chaos Magick lies the concept of paradigm shifting. A paradigm is a framework of beliefs and assumptions, a mental model of how the world works. Most people inhabit a single paradigm for most of their lives, often inherited from their culture, religion, or upbringing. Chaos magicians, however, treat paradigms as tools to be adopted and discarded as needed. They might, for example, perform a ritual using the symbols of one tradition one day, and switch to an entirely different system the next. The point is not to find the one true way, but to recognize that all magical systems are, to some extent, arbitrary constructs. What matters is not their objective truth, but their utility in producing desired results. This pragmatic approach extends to every aspect of Chaos Magick. There are no sacred cows, no forbidden techniques, no authorities whose word is final. The only measure of a magical technique's worth is its effectiveness. If a ritual, symbol, or belief produces the intended effect, it is valid, at least for the moment. If it does not, it can be modified or discarded. This attitude is reminiscent of the scientific method: hypothesis, experiment, observation, revision. But whereas science is concerned with external, repeatable phenomena, Chaos Magick is primarily concerned with the subjective experience of the magician. The role of belief in Chaos Magick cannot be overstated. Most magical systems assume that their own beliefs are objectively true. Chaos magicians, by contrast, see belief as a creative act. They recognize that the human mind is a powerful generator of meaning, capable of transforming the mundane into the miraculous. By consciously adopting and discarding beliefs, the Chaos Magician learns to manipulate the very fabric of their reality. This is not mere self-deception, but a deliberate and skillful harnessing of the mind's creative potential. To the uninitiated, this might sound paradoxical or even nihilistic. If all beliefs are tools, does anything really matter? Is there any anchor in the swirling sea of chaos? The answer for the Chaos Magician is that meaning is not discovered, but created. The magician becomes the author of their own story, the designer of their own spiritual technology. This is a path that demands both courage and responsibility. There is no external authority to blame, no tradition to hide behind. The Chaos Magician is both the experimenter and the experiment, the sculptor and the clay. Despite its iconoclasm, Chaos Magick is not a rejection of tradition for its own sake. Rather, it is an invitation to engage with tradition in a playful, creative, and critical way. A Chaos Magician might find value in the symbols of the Kabbalah, the rituals of ceremonial magic, the imagery of shamanism, or the mantras of Eastern mysticism. These elements are not adopted dogmatically, but reimagined, recombined, and repurposed. The Chaos Magician becomes a kind of bricoleur, assembling their own unique toolkit from the detritus of history and culture. This syncretic approach is made possible by a deep understanding of symbolism and psychology. Chaos Magicians recognize that symbols have power, not because they are inherently magical, but because they resonate with the unconscious mind. The human psyche is a labyrinth of archetypes, memories, and associations. By manipulating symbols, the magician stirs the depths of the unconscious, mobilizing energies that can affect change both within and without. Chaos magic is as much a form of applied psychology as it is an occult practice. One of the most distinctive features of chaos magic is its emphasis on personal experience. There are no gurus, no holy books, no secret teachings handed down through generations. Each practitioner is encouraged to test, adapt, and refine techniques according to their own needs and insights. This ethos of experimentation has given rise to a diverse array of practices and innovations. Some chaos magicians work with sigils, personalized symbols charged with intent. Others develop their own rituals, meditate, use trance states, or engage in creative visualization. There is no single correct way to practice chaos magic. The only rule is, if it works, use it. This focus on results has led some critics to accuse chaos magic of being overly utilitarian or even materialistic. But this is a misunderstanding. While chaos magicians are certainly interested in achieving tangible outcomes, be they changes in consciousness, personal transformation, or external results, they are also deeply engaged with questions of meaning, identity, and the nature of reality itself. The pragmatic stance of chaos magic is not an end in itself, but a means to greater self-awareness and creative freedom. The ethos of chaos magic is captured in its unofficial motto, "Nothing is true, everything is permitted." This phrase, often attributed to the legendary assassin Hassani Sabah, is both liberating and daunting. It is not a license for nihilism or amorality, but a call to radical responsibility. If nothing is absolutely true, then we are free to choose our own beliefs, values, and purposes. But with that freedom comes the obligation to act with intention and integrity. The chaos magician is not a passive consumer of reality, but an active participant in its creation. Another key concept in chaos magic is the idea of gnosis. In the context of chaos magic, gnosis refers to a state of altered consciousness in which the mind is focused, receptive, and open to magical work. This state can be achieved through a variety of means: meditation, sensory deprivation, intense emotion, physical exertion, or even laughter. The purpose of gnosis is to bypass the critical, analytical mind and access deeper levels of the psyche. It is in this state that the magician plants the seeds of intention, charges sigils, or performs rituals. The specific techniques are less important than the underlying principle. Magic happens when the conscious and unconscious minds are aligned in purpose. Chaos magic is sometimes criticized for its lack of structure, but this apparent chaos is itself a kind of order, an order that emerges from the creative interplay of experimentation, adaptation, and self-discovery. The absence of dogma is not an invitation to laziness or superficiality, but a challenge to engage more deeply with one's own process. The chaos magician must be both skeptic and believer, scientist and artist, student and teacher. The practice of chaos magic often begins with the creation of sigils. A sigil is a symbol created to represent a specific intention or desire. The process of creating and charging a sigil is both simple and profound. The practitioner formulates a clear statement of intent, reduces it to a unique symbol, and then charges it with energy through a state of gnosis. The details of this process will be explored in later chapters, but for now it is enough to note that sigil magic exemplifies the core principles of chaos magic: the transformation of belief into action, the manipulation of symbols, and the harnessing of altered states of consciousness. Another common practice is the use of servitors, autonomous psychic constructs created to carry out specific tasks. Servitors are a form of magical technology, designed and programmed by the magician according to their own needs. Like sigils, servitors are a testament to the creativity and adaptability of chaos magic. They are not bound by tradition or precedent, but are limited only by the imagination and skill of the practitioner. Chaos magic also makes extensive use of meditation, visualization, and trance techniques. These practices are not unique to chaos magic, but are adapted and integrated according to the individual's preferences. Some chaos magicians incorporate elements of shamanic journeying, lucid dreaming, or even contemporary psychological techniques, such as cognitive behavioral therapy. The aim is always the same: to gain greater control over one's own mind, to access deeper levels of consciousness, and to effect change in accordance with will. The relationship between chaos magic and mainstream religion is complex. Some chaos magicians are atheists or agnostics, using magical techniques as tools for psychological change. Others maintain a spiritual or mystical perspective, seeing magic as a way to engage with the divine, the numinous, or the unknown. Still others adopt a playful or ironic stance, treating magic as a kind of performance art. The diversity of approaches is both a strength and a challenge. There is no single chaos magic worldview, but a multiplicity of perspectives, each reflecting the unique journey of the practitioner. Despite its individualism, chaos magic has given rise to a vibrant subculture. In the 1980s and 1990s, chaos magic spread through zines, small press publications, and underground networks. Groups such as the Illuminates of Thanateros, IoT, provided a loose framework for collaboration and exchange, but even within such groups, hierarchy and dogma were kept to a minimum. The rise of the internet further accelerated the spread of chaos magic, allowing practitioners from around the world to share ideas, techniques, and experiences. Today, chaos magic is a global phenomenon practiced by people from all walks of life. The influence of chaos magic extends beyond the occult community. Its ideas have permeated popular culture, inspiring artists, writers, musicians, and filmmakers. The ethos of creative experimentation, paradigm shifting, and self-invention resonates with the spirit of postmodernity. In a world where old certainties are breaking down and new possibilities are emerging, chaos magic offers a model for navigating uncertainty with creativity and courage. One of the most important lessons of chaos magic is the importance of self-reflection. The chaos magician is encouraged to keep a magical diary, recording experiments, results, insights, and failures. This practice of documentation is not just a matter of record-keeping, but a tool for self-discovery. By observing patterns, testing assumptions, and refining techniques, the magician becomes a more effective agent of change. The diary becomes a mirror, reflecting both the conscious and unconscious processes at work. Ethics is another area where chaos magic takes a nuanced approach. Since there are no external authorities or absolute rules, each practitioner must develop their own ethical framework. This is not an invitation to amorality, but a call to personal responsibility. The chaos magician is encouraged to consider the consequences of their actions, both for themselves and for others. The principle of do what thou wilt is tempered by the recognition that every action has ripples, and that true freedom is inseparable from responsibility. The question of whether chaos magic works is both simple and complex. The effectiveness of chaos magic can be measured by results. Did the ritual produce the desired outcome? But on a deeper level, chaos magic is about transformation, of perception, of consciousness, of the self. The process of experimenting with beliefs, symbols, and techniques inevitably leads to greater self-awareness and adaptability. Even when specific results are elusive, the practice of chaos magic can foster creativity, resilience, and a sense of agency. Skeptics might argue that chaos magic is nothing more than a form of self-delusion or placebo. But this critique misses the point. The placebo effect itself is a testament to the power of belief. Chaos magicians recognize that the boundaries between mind and world are more porous than commonly assumed. By harnessing the mechanisms of belief, intention, and symbolism, the magician can effect real changes, in themselves and sometimes in the world around them. It is important to note that chaos magic is not a panacea. It does not offer easy answers or guaranteed results. It is a path of uncertainty, experimentation, and risk. There will be failures, setbacks, and periods of doubt, but these are not signs of inadequacy, but of growth. The Chaos Magician learns to embrace uncertainty, to see failure as feedback, and to cultivate resilience. The journey is as important as the destination. As chaos magic has evolved, it has absorbed influences from a wide range of sources. Postmodern philosophy, cybernetics, psychology, neuroscience, and even quantum physics have all left their mark. The boundaries between magic, science, and art have become increasingly blurred. Some chaos magicians see themselves as psychonauts, exploring the inner spaces of consciousness. Others adopt the language of hacking, treating reality as a code to be rewritten. The metaphors are diverse, but the underlying impulse is the same: to explore, to experiment, and to create. The appeal of chaos magic lies in its invitation to personal empowerment. In a world where many feel powerless in the face of larger forces, chaos magic offers a way to reclaim agency. By taking responsibility for one's own beliefs, actions, and experiences, the chaos magician becomes an active participant in the unfolding of reality. This is not a solitary pursuit. It is a form of engaged living, a way of relating to the world with curiosity, creativity, and courage. Throughout this book, we will explore the principles, practices, and philosophy of chaos magic in greater depth. We will examine the tools and techniques that chaos magicians use, from sigils and servitors to rituals and meditation. We will delve into the psychology of belief, the art of paradigm shifting, and the cultivation of gnosis. We will also consider the ethical and philosophical implications of a path that rejects dogma and embraces uncertainty. Chaos magic is not for everyone. It demands a willingness to question, to experiment, and to take responsibility for one's own path. It is a journey without maps, a dance on the edge of the unknown. But for those who are drawn to its call, chaos magic offers a way to engage with the mysteries of existence in a spirit of play, creativity, and self-discovery. The chaos magician is above all an explorer. The territory is the mind, the tools are symbols and beliefs, and the goal is transformation. There are no final answers, no fixed destinations. The journey itself is the magic. As we embark on this exploration together, I invite you to approach chaos magic with an open mind and a spirit of curiosity. Set aside your preconceptions, your doubts, and your certainties. Prepare to question everything, including your own assumptions. Remember that chaos magic is not about finding the right system, but about discovering what works for you. It is a process of continual adaptation, innovation, and self-invention. In the chapters that follow, we will journey through the landscape of chaos magic, mapping its ideas, practices, and possibilities. We will encounter challenges, paradoxes, and opportunities for growth. Along the way, you will be encouraged to experiment, to reflect, and to create your own path. Chaos magic is a living tradition, a tradition of non-tradition, a system of non-systems. It is a mirror that reflects the infinite potential of the human mind. Whether you are a seasoned practitioner or a curious newcomer, this grimoire is an invitation to step into the unknown, to embrace the chaos, and to become the magician of your own life. The world is not as fixed or certain as it may seem. Beneath the surface of everyday reality lies a realm of infinite possibility. Chaos magic is the art of navigating that realm, of shaping the formless into form, of turning dreams into reality. It is a path of power, creativity, and transformation. If you are ready to begin, turn the page. The adventure awaits. Chapter 2: The Evolution of Modern Magic. The story of modern magic is a tangled web of traditions, philosophies, and countercurrents, all woven together over centuries. To understand the emergence of chaos magic, one must trace the roots of magical practice from its ancient origins through its many metamorphoses. The evolution of magic is not a straightforward march from darkness into enlightenment, but rather a cyclical journey marked by innovation, repression, revival, and synthesis. Chaos magic, as it emerged in the late 20th century, is both a reaction to and a culmination of this long and complex history. In the beginning, magic was inseparable from the fabric of daily life. The earliest humans lived in a world that was mysterious, unpredictable, and often dangerous. Their survival depended on their ability to interpret signs, appease spirits, and influence the unseen forces believed to govern the natural world. Magic in this primordial sense was pragmatic. It was not a distinct body of knowledge, but rather an integral part of religion, medicine, and community ritual. Shamans, the first magicians, were intermediaries between the human and the spirit realms. They entered altered states of consciousness, often induced by drumming, dancing, fasting, or ingesting psychoactive plants. In these trance states, shamans communed with spirits, sought guidance, healed the sick, and protected their communities from harm. Their tools, rattles, drums, masks, and costumes, were imbued with symbolic power. The shaman's role was both practical and spiritual, blurring the boundaries between what we would now call magic, religion, and medicine. As human societies grew more complex, so too did their magical systems. In ancient Egypt, magic Heka was a fundamental principle of the cosmos, wielded by gods and humans alike. Egyptian priests performed elaborate rituals to maintain Ma'at, the cosmic order. Their spells inscribed on papyri and amulets were intended to protect the living and guide the dead through the perils of the afterlife. The Egyptians developed a rich magical technology. Words of power, sacred names, and complex iconography were believed to have intrinsic efficacy. In Mesopotamia, magic was codified in the cuneiform tablets of the Sumerians, Babylonians, and Assyrians. Here, the distinction between magic and religion was less pronounced than it would later become in the West. Priests and magicians invoked the names of gods and spirits, performed exorcisms, and crafted protective talismans. The Babylonian Maklu series, a collection of anti-witchcraft rituals, reflects a worldview in which the supernatural was ever-present and required constant negotiation. The Greeks and Romans inherited and expanded upon these traditions. Magical papyri from the Hellenistic period reveal a cosmopolitan blend of Egyptian, Greek, Jewish, and Babylonian elements. Theurgy, the practice of invoking gods and daimons to achieve union with the divine, flourished among Neoplatonist philosophers. Philosophers such as Iamblichus argued that theurgy was a path to spiritual ascent, distinct from the base sorcery, condemned by Plato and others. Meanwhile, the common people engaged in love spells, curse tablets, and protective charms, seeking to influence the caprices of fate. With the rise of Christianity in the Roman Empire, magic underwent a profound transformation. The early church fathers drew sharp distinctions between miracle and magic, associating the latter with paganism, heresy, and demonic influence. Yet the old ways persisted, often rebranded as folk custom or superstition. The grimoires of late antiquity and the Middle Ages, handbooks of spells, invocations, and astrological calculations testify to an underground current of magical practice that survived through centuries of repression. During the Middle Ages, magic was both feared and sought after. The Church condemned sorcery, divination, and necromancy, associating them with heresy and witchcraft. Yet alchemy, astrology, and the natural magic of scholars such as Albertus Magnus and Roger Bacon were tolerated, even respected, as long as they could be framed as investigations into God's creation. The line between legitimate inquiry and forbidden magic was never entirely clear. Alchemy, in particular, played a crucial role in the evolution of Western esotericism. Born in the crucible of Greco-Egyptian Alexandria, and later flourishing in the Islamic world, alchemy was a complex blend of practical laboratory work, mystical philosophy, and symbolic language. Alchemists sought the transmutation of base metals into gold, the creation of the philosopher's stone, and the attainment of spiritual perfection. Their texts, shrouded in allegory and coded symbolism, influenced later magical traditions in profound ways. The Renaissance marked a turning point. The rediscovery of ancient texts, coupled with the rise of humanism, fueled a revival of esoteric philosophy. Scholars such as Marsilio Ficino, Giovanni Pico della Mirandola, and Johannes Reichlen translated and commented on the works of Plato, the Hermetica, and the Jewish Kabbalah. Ficino's translations of the Corpus Hermeticum introduced the concept of the magus as a philosopher-priest, one who could ascend to the divine through contemplation and ritual. Pico synthesized Kabbalah with Christian theology, arguing that magic could reveal the hidden correspondences between the celestial and terrestrial realms. Renaissance magicians such as Cornelius Agrippa and John Dee systematized magical knowledge in encyclopedic works. Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy became the foundational text for generations of Western magicians. Dee, a mathematician, astrologer, and advisor to Queen Elizabeth I, developed the Enochian system of angelic magic with his scryer, Edward Kelly. Their elaborate rituals, complex alphabets, and visionary experiences exemplified the synthesis of science, mysticism, and magic, characteristic of the era. Yet the Renaissance was also an age of anxiety. The Protestant Reformation, the rise of scientific rationalism, and the brutal witch hunts of the early modern period created a climate of suspicion and repression. Magic was increasingly marginalized, forced underground, or disguised as science or religion. The Enlightenment further accelerated this process, as philosophers championed reason and empirical inquiry over superstition and occultism. Despite this, the esoteric current did not vanish. It adapted, mutated, and survived in new forms. In the 18th and 19th centuries, secret societies such as the Rosicrucians, the Freemasons, and the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn emerged as custodians of magical lore. These groups blended ritual, symbolism, and initiatory structures drawn from earlier traditions, offering a path of personal transformation and spiritual ascent to their initiates. The Golden Dawn, founded in London in 1888, was particularly influential in shaping the modern Western magical tradition. Its founders, William Wynne Westcott, Samuel Little McGregor Mathers, and William Robert Woodman, synthesized elements of Kabbalah, Hermeticism, alchemy, astrology, and tarot into a comprehensive system of ceremonial magic. The Golden Dawn's graded initiatory structure, elaborate rituals, and emphasis on personal gnosis attracted a generation of seekers, including the notorious Aleister Crowley. Crowley, a self-styled prophet and magician, would become the most controversial figure in 20th century occultism. A former member of the Golden Dawn, Crowley developed his own system, Thelema, based on the central dictum, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." Crowley's magical writings, including Magic in Theory and Practice and the Book of the Law, synthesized Eastern and Western traditions, sexual mysticism, and a radical emphasis on individual will. For Crowley, magic was the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will, a definition that would profoundly influence later developments. The early 20th century saw the emergence of other influential currents. Dion Fortune, Israel Regardie, and other occultists built on the foundations laid by the Golden Dawn and Crowley, emphasizing psychological and spiritual development. The growth of psychology as a discipline, particularly the theories of Carl Jung, provided a new framework for understanding magical experience. Jung's concepts of the collective unconscious, archetypes, and individuation resonated with magicians seeking to reconcile inner experience with outer ritual. Parallel to these developments, the rise of anthropology and comparative religion brought new perspectives on magic. Scholars such as James Frazer, in The Golden Bough, and Margaret Murray, in The Witch Cult in Western Europe, sought to reconstruct the origins and functions of magical belief. Although many of their theories have since been discredited, their work contributed to a growing fascination with folk magic, witchcraft, and the survival of ancient paganism. This interest found expression in the emergence of Wicca and contemporary witchcraft in the mid-20th century. Gerald Gardner, a British civil servant and amateur anthropologist, claimed to have been initiated into a surviving witch cult in the 1930s. Drawing on a blend of folklore, ceremonial magic, and Eastern philosophy, Gardner developed Wicca as a modern pagan religion. Wicca emphasized ritual, seasonal festivals, and reverence for nature, attracting a wide following and inspiring a proliferation of new magical traditions. By the 1960s and 1970s, the Western magical revival was in full swing. The counterculture embraced occultism as part of a broader rejection of mainstream values. Occult bookstores, covens, and magical orders flourished. Books such as Mastering Witchcraft by Paul Husson and The Spiral Dance by Starhawk introduced new generations to the art of magic. Yet for all its diversity and creativity, much of the magical revival remained rooted in tradition, hierarchy, and dogma. It was in this fertile but restless environment that Chaos Magick emerged. The seeds of Chaos Magick were sown by a handful of iconoclastic thinkers who challenged the assumptions of traditional occultism. Foremost among them was Peter J. Carroll, a British occultist who, along with Ray Sherwin, founded the Illuminates of Thanateros in the late 1970s. Carroll's books, Liber Null and Psychonaut, articulated a radically new approach to magic, one that dispensed with dogma, embraced experimentation, and prioritized results over tradition. Chaos magic was a product of its time. The late 20th century was an age of postmodernism, skepticism, and cultural fragmentation. Old certainties were dissolving, and new possibilities were emerging. Chaos magicians rejected the notion that magical efficacy depended on adherence to a particular tradition, pantheon, or set of beliefs. Instead, they argued that belief itself was a tool, a technology of consciousness that could be adopted, manipulated, or discarded at will. This insight was not entirely new. Aleister Crowley had anticipated it in his dictum, "The method of science, the aim of religion." Austin Osman Spare, an early 20th century artist and occultist, had developed techniques of sigilization and atavistic resurgence that foreshadowed the core practices of chaos magic. Spare's emphasis on the subconscious, the power of desire, and the use of personal symbolism resonated deeply with later chaos magicians. What set chaos magic apart was its radical pragmatism. Chaos magicians viewed magical systems as arbitrary maps, useful fictions that could be employed, modified, or discarded as needed. They borrowed freely from any and all traditions, synthesizing elements of ceremonial magic, shamanism, tantra, voodoo, pop culture, and science fiction. Rituals could be constructed ad hoc, using whatever symbols, gestures, or language seemed effective. The only criterion was results. This approach was both liberating and challenging. By discarding tradition, chaos magicians freed themselves from the constraints of dogma, hierarchy, and orthodoxy. They could experiment, innovate, and adapt their practice to suit their own needs and circumstances. Yet this freedom came at a cost. Without the safety net of tradition, chaos magicians had to rely on their own judgment, creativity, and discipline. The path was open, but so too was the abyss. The core techniques of chaos magic reflected this ethos. Sigil magic, as developed by Spare and popularized by Carroll and others, became a central practice. Magicians would formulate a desire or intent, encode it into a symbolic glyph, and then launch the sigil into the subconscious through techniques of gnosis, meditation, trance, sexual climax, or other methods of altered consciousness. The theory was that by bypassing the conscious mind, the magician could implant their will directly into the fabric of reality. Another key concept was paradigm shifting, the deliberate adoption of different belief systems for magical purposes. A chaos magician might one day invoke the gods of ancient Egypt, the next day work with Lovecraftian entities, and the day after that perform rituals based on quantum physics or cyberpunk mythology. The point was not to believe in any of these systems as literal truth, but to use them as tools for exploring consciousness and effecting change. Chaos magic also embraced the insights of psychology, particularly the work of Jung, Freud, and later thinkers such as Robert Anton Wilson and Timothy Leary. The mind in this view was a mutable landscape, subject to conditioning, suggestion, and reprogramming. Techniques of self-hypnosis, affirmations, and neuro-linguistic programming were incorporated into the magician's toolkit. The boundaries between magic, psychology, and art became increasingly porous. The influence of chaos magic spread rapidly through zines, small presses, and the emerging internet culture of the 1980s and 1990s. Publications such as Chaos International and the New Equinox provided forums for discussion, experimentation, and the sharing of techniques. The movement attracted a diverse array of practitioners, artists, musicians, hackers, and seekers of all stripes, drawn by its irreverence, creativity, and DIY ethos. Yet chaos magic was not without its critics. Some accused it of nihilism, arguing that its rejection of tradition and meaning left practitioners adrift in a sea of relativism. Others saw it as a dangerous flirtation with the forces of the unconscious, warning that without structure and discipline, chaos magicians risked psychological imbalance or worse. Still others dismissed it as a passing fad, an epiphenomenon of the postmodern zeitgeist. Despite these criticisms, chaos magic has endured and evolved. Its influence can be seen in the rise of pop culture magic, the blending of occultism with digital technology, and the proliferation of eclectic, individualized approaches to spiritual practice. The internet, in particular, has amplified the chaos magician's ethos, enabling the rapid dissemination of ideas, the formation of virtual communities, and the constant remixing of symbols, narratives, and techniques. In tracing the evolution of modern magic, it becomes clear that chaos magic is both a break from and a continuation of the past. It inherits the experimental spirit of the Renaissance magus, the psychological insight of the 20th century occult revival, and the pragmatic cunning of the shaman. Yet it also represents a radical departure, a willingness to embrace uncertainty, to question all assumptions, and to treat belief itself as a tool rather than a truth. The road to chaos magic is paved with the bones of old gods, the ashes of burned witches, and the dusty tomes of forgotten philosophers. It is a path marked by rebellion, innovation, and the refusal to be bound by dogma. In the end, the evolution of magic is the evolution of consciousness itself, a never-ending dance between order and chaos, structure and freedom, tradition and innovation. As we move deeper into the 21st century, the boundaries between magic, science, art, and technology continue to blur. The Chaos Magician stands at the intersection of these currents, a trickster and a pioneer, weaving new patterns from the threads of the past. The Grimoire of Chaos Magic is still being written, its pages filled with experiment, paradox, and possibility. To understand its origins is to glimpse the ever-changing face of magic itself, a face that, in the end, is our own. Chapter 3. Core Principles of Chaos Magicians. Chaos magic is often described as the punk rock of Western esotericism, and with reason. It is irreverent, iconoclastic, and fiercely individualistic. Where other magical traditions may cloak themselves in the trappings of ancient ritual, dogma, and hierarchy, chaos magic tears down those walls with a wild grin and a shrug. It is not that chaos magicians do not respect the traditions that came before them, but rather that they understand those traditions as tools, not commandments. At its heart, chaos magic is less about what you believe and more about how you use belief itself. The core principles of chaos magicians are therefore not a rigid set of doctrines, but a dynamic, adaptable framework for interacting with reality. The first and perhaps most pivotal principle is the understanding that belief is a tool. In the chaos magician's worldview, beliefs are not sacred truths to be defended at all costs. They are mental constructs, lenses through which we interpret and affect the world. Just as a carpenter chooses a hammer for one job and a screwdriver for another, a chaos magician selects beliefs, sometimes even contradictory ones, according to their utility in a given context. This approach is often summarized by the phrase, "Nothing is true, everything is permitted." While this slogan is sometimes misunderstood as a license for nihilism or amorality, within chaos magic it points to the radical freedom and responsibility of the practitioner. If beliefs are tools, then the magician is free to adopt, modify, or discard them at will, provided they serve the magician's intentions. This instrumental view of belief leads naturally to the second core principle, pragmatism. Chaos magicians are not interested in metaphysical speculation for its own sake. Their focus is on results. Whether a ritual works is evaluated by its practical effects, not by its adherence to tradition or orthodoxy. If invoking an ancient deity, visualizing a sigil, or chanting a mantra produces the desired change in consciousness or circumstance, then the technique is considered valid, regardless of its historical pedigree or philosophical coherence. You have been listening to an extended preview of the Chaos Magician's Grimoire. To continue reading, visit the LLH Media Store or the book's Amazon listing.